Hello and welcome to Salome's Writer Therapy, where you and your writing connect. Sometimes it's hard to stay connected to the story you're writing at the moment, or to feel motivated to keep on writing. You can start to feel overwhelmed, stuck, or even bored while you're in the process of writing. So, in today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about it. Not just how to stay connected and motivated right now, but also how to avoid getting overwhelmed or bored in the future. And please check out the description for a free resource that will help you figure out the how to staying motivated for who you are. So grab your favorite beverage and a cozy spot and let's dive into today's episode. Okay, so first, let's talk about writer's block, because I'm sure some of you immediately thought about it when you heard the intro to this episode. Now, a lot of people use the term writer's block as a catch-all for anything that keeps them from writing. But if you'd bear with me, I'd like to dig a little deeper so that I might help you to get back to writing with joy as quickly as possible. Now, the dictionary defines writer's block as the condition of being unable to think of what to write or how to proceed with writing. If we break it down, then it's basically any time you are struggling with your plot, your outline, your characters, the structure, etc., or anything to do with the actual story or writing craft, then you have writer's block. So, as an example, and by taking that definition into consideration, it would mean that when you're stuck with a scene and you don't know how to start it or end it or add conflict, etc., then it would be defined as writer's block, right? But what about those times when you're just not feeling it? When you're tired or bored with your story, or when life gets in the way and you can't manage to muster the energy or motivation to sit down and write, even if it's just for 10 minutes? Those situations don't fit the definition of writer's block. Remember, it's about being stuck or unsure about what to write or how to write it. It's about the story or the craft. It isn't about those things outside of writing. Your emotional state, your responsibilities, your life that can sometimes interfere with your creativity. So, the first step would be to determine if you are, in fact, having writer's block or whether it's something else. And if you are struggling with writer's block, then make sure you're getting notifications because we're going to talk about writer's block in detail in next week's episode. So, if it's not writer's block, but you're still struggling to write, what can you do then? And here we are going to talk about the reason I started this channel in the first place. We are writers, we are authors, we are wordsmiths, but we are also human. We have good days, bad days, and something in between days. We have families and responsibilities, we have celebrations and tragedies, we have emotions and hormones. We have a past that has riddled our present with insecurities, doubts, fears, and traumas. And it's all connected. Our creativity, our writing, doesn't exist in a vacuum. And yes, that's sometimes an unfortunate truth. It would be great if we could switch off all the other parts of our lives so we can just write, just create that story we wish to share. But as they say, life happens. And it's that, more often than we realize, that can cause our struggles when we want to write or be creative. So what are you to do? First, take a look at who you are right now. What is your current season in life? Look at your time, your emotional state, your responsibilities, the things that aren't quite how you want them to be. The thing is, all of us have this image of who we wished we were or how we wished our lives were right now, even if it isn't true yet. I wish I had more time to write. I wish I could write 4,000 words instead of 2,000 words a day. I wish I could write every day. I wish I could be a better writer. And one of the biggest mistakes you can make, and I'm guilty of it too, is to plan your life based on that wish and not the truth. Now, your life right now might suck. You might be so far away from that perfect version of yourself that it almost seems a kindness to ignore it. But the problem is, if you plan your life based on who you wished you were right now, or where you wished you were, or how you wished your life was, then the plan wouldn't work. You've probably heard that saying, meet yourself where you are, and that is the key. You need to know who you are, what you're capable of, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how your life is right now in order to live your life to the fullest and to achieve the things that you want to achieve, including finishing that story. And as an exercise, which I've included in the free resource below, I want you to think of yourself as a character in a story. You are the main character in the story of your life. Now, I have a few questions you can ask that might guide you to the answers, all of which are in the free resource. So the first question is, who are you? What events or situations led you to being this person? And if you're thinking about yourself as a character, then this is your backstory, the things that have shaped who you are, good and bad, up to this point. Don't think about the future yet, or that person you wished you were. Just think or journal about who you are right now. Do you have routines or instinctual responses to things because of who you are or because of your past? The second question is, what are your limitations? What things are holding you back? And if you're the character, this is your misbelief and your fear. So, what are you afraid of? What are your doubts about yourself or your abilities? What lessons have you learned from other people or past experiences that you hold as true about yourself or your abilities? And here, it's very important to be honest with yourself. No one has to see these answers but you. And the final question is, what things or people are a part of your life right now? And if you are the character, this is almost like the story's opening image or the setup. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? Do you have a full-time job? Are you a student? Do you have family or kids? Do you have an active social life? What is your life like right now? What's important to you? What or who do you spend your time on? Now, this is the start of your story. You need a baseline or a foundation from which to create a plan for your life and your writing that will actually work for you. Now, from those questions you answered, you should have a clear picture of who you are and how your life is right now. So the question is, where does your writing fit into that picture? How important is it in the grand scheme of your life? How much time can you dedicate to it without dropping any of the other balls that you're juggling at the moment? And this is where I want you to think about your writing as a goal, like we do with our characters, right? They must have goals. Now, if writing is the goal, then what is your motivation? And this is the key part of the episode. Why do you write? And more specifically, why do you write this story? Why is it important? Why is it worth the sacrifices? Why do you want to do it? If you can answer these questions, you can create a very powerful source of fuel for your motivation. For example, you might get excited when you think about the character relationships that you're creating, or you love the plot idea that you're playing with. Or maybe you have an emotion you're excited to invoke in your readers, or you have a meaningful message that you want to share. Whatever it is, make it yours, and don't ever judge your reasons. They are not meaningless or stupid. If they are true to who you are and what you want, then they are amazing. The thing to remember is, just like with our characters, we will do things or not do things because of the principle of pain versus pain. Now, I've talked about this principle as well in my episode on characters, so if you want a more detailed explanation, you can check that out. I have linked it below. So, is spending time writing more or less painful than watching Netflix? Or is writing more or less painful than spending time with your family? And the key to the pain versus pain principle is motivation. It all comes down to why. And the sad truth is, there are some days when the why, or the reason you want to write, is not strong enough to tip those scales of pain versus pain. And that's when we feel overwhelmed or bored or not in the mood. So, how do you make the motivation to sit down to write strong enough to tip the scales? Remember at the start of the episode where I said that everything is connected, that your writing doesn't happen in a vacuum, and that it's important to know who you are and how your life is right now? That's why getting motivated isn't always as simple as setting deadlines for yourself or giving yourself rewards or punishments when you write or don't write. On some days, you'll need to dig into the well of your big motivation, the why your writing is important in the first place. And on other days, you'll need to make judgments or decisions based on your life or who you are right now, because your writing is connected to you. So whenever you're overwhelmed or bored or tired or just not feeling it, those are the times when your writing is on the low end of the scale. And yes, things like deadlines and rewards can tip the scale, but not for everyone and not always. I want you to remember this one thing. If you forget everything else, then remember this. To get motivated to write, you need to reconnect to your writing. And you reconnect to your writing by staying true to who you are and how your life is right now and how your writing fits into your life. How important is it? Or the reason you're doing it. It is your reason for doing it that will tip the scales, or not. And I say or not because your writing won't always win the contest of this pain versus pain, but the mark of a writer is to understand that sometimes that's the way it goes, and it is okay. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a deadline to finish a chapter by the end of the week, and you have 2,000 words left to write. Now, if you could write in a vacuum, it'll be easy, right? But maybe you have friends visiting at the weekend, or you had a bad case of the flu and you're still recovering. Or what if you've had an all-nighter and you're bone tired? How do you motivate yourself to write under these circumstances? The truth is, it's up to you. Only you can determine what you're willing to sacrifice to make it happen. Only you know, within the parameters of your life right now, how important it is for you to finish the story. Maybe you decide for today, writing is more important than visiting with your friends, so you might cut the visit short to get some writing done. Or maybe you decide your health is more important than your writing, so you'll give yourself a break today and you'll get back to it tomorrow. Or maybe you decide to take a quick nap and then you will write for an hour. And that's why advice like setting deadlines or giving yourself rewards or punishments, cleaning your desk, or any of the hundreds of other methods or tricks out there might work or they might not. Because even if you set a deadline, but your writing drew the short straw today in terms of pain versus pain, then what happens? You move the deadline, right? Or you take the reward anyway, or you ignore the punishment. Or you might have a clean desk now, but no writing got done. So now you just feel bad about yourself. My point is, the methods or tricks you can try to get motivated doesn't really matter because it's about who you are and where you are in your life right now, and most importantly, where your writing fits in more than all the other things that you tell yourself will help you to get motivated. Because if you're willing to sacrifice something to write, then there is this intrinsic motivation that is stirred to life because you need that sacrifice to be worth it, right? If you're giving up 2 hours of sleep every morning, then you are going to make it worth it by actually writing. To help you, whenever you feel unmotivated, overwhelmed, bored, tired, or when you're just not feeling it, ask yourself this: am I willing to sacrifice X, Y, or Z so I can write? Now, let's look at a quick example. If I say that I don't feel like writing today, then I can't really plug it into the question, right? Am I willing to sacrifice not feeling like writing so I can write? That doesn't make sense. But if you think on it a bit, why don't you feel like writing? There's always a reason behind it. It's your job to find out what it is. That's the only way you can determine if you're willing to sacrifice it. So, did you wake up feeling worn out or depressed and you just want to curl up under your covers and sleep the whole day? Maybe you want to pamper yourself a bit with a bath and a glass of wine, or you want to sit outside and read a book. Now those we can plug into the question: am I willing to sacrifice pampering myself so I can write? And that's where using methods or tricks like setting deadlines or rewards and punishments can be detrimental to you. Because if you've set a deadline, but now you're not feeling up to writing, then you might ignore that feeling in favor of meeting the deadline. You will force yourself to write even when you're not feeling it. And the potential problem with this is sometimes our minds and our bodies sends us messages because you need to take care of yourself as well. So if taking a bath with a glass of wine will help you to feel better about yourself or make you happy, then not doing it might be worse than taking a couple of hours to do it. It's all about that pain versus pain. And your answer might be different though. You might say it's not worth sacrificing your writing for pampering yourself right now, but you can set time aside to take that bath with the glass of wine tonight or tomorrow. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Staying motivated is a personal choice. Every day, you choose an option with the principle of pain versus pain. You choose to do one thing over another. But the thing is, you need to be honest. Just be honest. Sometimes the answer will be yes, I will sacrifice this thing so I can write. And sometimes the answer might be no, I will not sacrifice this thing to write at this moment. But you will hopefully start to see, if you've been clear on your motivations, that most of the time you won't need to ask the question because you already know what the answer is going to be. Now, this might be an unpopular opinion, but the motivation to write is what it is. You can't add to it or take away from it. It's a matter of weighing two options against each other, to write or do something else, and determining which option's motivation is stronger at that specific moment in time. Now, I realize that you might feel a bit disheartened by this information, but please don't. Your desire to write the story comes from somewhere. All you need to do is remind yourself of that reason from time to time, and you'll be surprised at the motivation that surges up because of it. My final advice when it comes to staying motivated is to take it a day at a time, be kind to yourself, and remember, you and your writing are connected. It doesn't do you any good to bleed yourself dry just so you can write, because that blood, it ends up on the pages of your story. So that's it for today's episode. If you found this episode helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell. And if you have any questions or future episode suggestions, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. And also, don't forget to check out the free resource in the description to help you determine the way to stay motivated for who you are. So, until next time, may your creativity flow freely and your fingers dance upon the keys. Keep writing with joy and stay connected. Cheers.